are we being put through all these pains and agonies? We've had no clear reason from the government on what the benefits of amalgamations can be. No clear explanation. And all the costs and expense and drama, alienation of people that this has resulted in.
I read somewhere that the government want us, as part of our response to the delegate, to provide evidence, an evidence-based response. The government have provided no evidence of any of the major benefits applying to amalgamation of Pittwater, etc. Just absolutely none whatsoever.
That's
so
right.
Why should we produce evidence to the delegate?
That's right, they've put the onus on us.
Yes.
When we know we have something that works here.
$2 billion, and Professor Dollery says that the report is awash with errors, awash with errors. They can't even get their own numbers right.
The Morning Herald, in the last couple of days, they're absolutely supporting that and saying that the evidence that they're presenting, finally, is so erroneous. So, and it doesn't, KCMG report doesn't even agree with itself. So, you're wondering where they're coming from.
That was the headline the other day in the Herald. And if you have a look at some of the figures that have been released, you'll find that the government is putting up a figure of 49 million in saving. It's unclear whether the 20 million they refer to in the next few lines is included in that or not. We can only assume that since it's supposed to be a total benefit of 49 million, that it isn't, that the 20 million rather is included. And if you work that out over the number of people in those two LGAs, and if you do a discounted for cash flow on it over 20 years, it comes out as $5 per person per year, which is just ridiculous.
We must never forget that when the plebiscite was conducted by Pittwater Council, 89% said no. 89% said no, and no matter how they fiddle the figures, 89% said no. Now, I have done a survey of my members, voluntary of course, but I wrote to every member and it was unanimous. Those who responded said the same as they said originally, no to amalgamation.
I'd just like to make a comment regarding Professor Dollery is why is Pittwater Council placing so much emphasis on what he says when we know that there are so many errors, yet he claims that it is the most sensible and economically responsible outcome for the region possible, and our General Manager is espousing that. I'd like to know why there's been so much spin on this whole process.
I believe the whole situation with the Boundaries Commission is a total sham. It is been introduced to produce the decisions the government want. It's totally undemocratic. There's one delegate being delegated to act an inquiry. Most of them are public servants. How can they be independent? The meetings and the public inquiries you have to register to attend, and we're told the delegate may decide who can attend and who can speak and who can not attend. Then the decision goes back to the Boundaries Commission, then to the Minister, who will make what decision he wanted in the first place.
So in other words, it's a rigged process.
You could say that, yes.
I think you've got to ask what's the subtext in all this, and the subtext is really about planning. It's streamlining planning for developers. It's taking away the small amount of local voice already in planning that'll just be gone. It's certainly reducing the representation of council people, and it's particularly painful for Pittwater, who fought for 25 years to liberate ourselves from Warringah, and now without any say-so on our part or the Warringah people's part, we are being taken over by part of Warringah in a massive expansion of our area and population. To what end? There are so many ways local government can be reformed without forcing amalgamations in this incredibly undemocratic process. It's a disgrace, and it's a disgrace for the government parties in this state.
I think one of the most disappointing parts of the process
is that since the 89% plebiscite, the relationship between the council and the residents groups, of which we are the most significant, has been totally dysfunctional. And that unlike other councils that we've seen, we've had no support and no intervention in what is essentially a political process in which we have no skills.
So you're saying that our council has not assisted us to raise our voice?
That's exactly what I'm saying. The council has been no assistance in raising our political awareness in a process which is totally undemocratic and has ignored the residents' groups. The council is supposed to represent us and our views. It is not doing that. It has not helped.
Do you feel that party politics has invaded the local government process in this shire?
I don't know. I just find the fact that the state government chooses to attack the heartland of the Liberal Party fundraising and votes extraordinary. And in some fashion, it will come back to them.
Local government is the level of government which represents the people. It represents the residents, it represents their interests, it represents their small interests in most cases. This whole process has been based on financial viability of a council, and even the conclusions of that are spurious. So the whole process is about money and local government is about people. So the two, in my mind, do not match.
So as I understand it, you're saying you can make an election to live in an economy.
That's right.
Or you can live in a community.
That's right.
And that's what this is about.
That is what the government fails to recognise. And we also live in an environment, it was pointed out at one of our meetings. We don't initially live in an economy.
Well, whatever happened to no forced amalgamation? The words that were spoken right at the beginning. And I heard that and I thought, yippee, we're such a good group, a good place to live, great council, and here we are. And then I heard, we're getting we'll take a bit of Warringah, which will only go down to Collaroy. And I thought, well, I could live with that. But now it's gone right up further, and here we are, right up here to Forestville, which is a nightmare, and this is going to be such a big area to look after. We're going to lose all the support, all the lovely friendships and everything that we've ever had, and I will never get my art gallery, art precinct built up here in Pittwater. And we've been happy. I love my council. They're good friends. We are self-sufficient. Why change it when it's not broken?
Does anybody have an idea on something that's not right in Pittwater that would be better if we were an enlarged council?
Nothing. Nothing at all. No?
The government's inquiry into the suitability of Pittwater proved that Pittwater didn't need anything fixing. And when they got that result, they turned around and said, well, we'll change the rules so that we will have the result that we always wanted.
So we are being told that one of the benefits of the merger proposal is that we will reduce our infrastructure backlog. What does that mean? What does reducing our infrastructure backlog mean? And to date, we don't believe there's been any assessment done by the council on what our backlog of infrastructure is. So how can the state government promise that one of the benefits will be a reduction in our infrastructure backlog?
Can I add to that, please, John? Pittwater created a levy, an environmental infrastructure levy, followed by a special rate variation worth $30 million to overcome the backlog that was left to Pittwater when it left Warringah because of the neglect of this area by the Warringah Council at that time. So this council, this area, is already dealing with an infrastructure backlog, $30 million over 10 years.
But it has substantially dealt with that backlog.
Yes, it's well on the way.
Which kind of indicates efficiency, doesn't it?
So, as the previous speaker said, talking about helping to deal with an infrastructure backlog by a larger council is nonsense.
Yeah, John, Gavin Butler, Newport residents. It's ironic that Warringah just last year got the Blewett Award for good councils, and Pittwater Council was the runner-up. So here you've got the best two councils in New South Wales being split up. So there's no reason for it. Additionally, to back up other people's comments about this council really hasn't supported us during the period. You might go to Laurie's comments where it was no amalgamation of Pittwater. Then that changed suddenly to no mega council without anyone else's approval except the councils. And then here we are in Pittwater living today. We say Warringah is extremely disappointed. Mossman says there is absolutely no upside. Manly is relieved Shorrock will stay intact. And Pittwater says it's an exciting time. So this is from our mayor, and our mayor further gets quoted, while everyone else is nursing the bruises, Pittwater Council is all smiles. Like the other councils, their first preference was to remain independent, but Mayor Jacqueline Townsend was wearing the rose-coloured glasses when Peninsula Living visited their Warriewood offices. It's not a setback at all. It is something we should all embrace, and hopefully we will, Mayor Townsend gushes. And that just about sums up the approach of the council.
One of the key parts of this argument is that the council should be fit for the future. If you look at the analysis, all of the four councils who are members of Shorrock, Mossman, Manly, Warringah and Pittwater, were all fit for the future except for one criteria, and that was scale and capacity. Now, scale and capacity was a mantra that was being pushed very heavily in the 70s, 80s and 90s of last century. We now are in the 21st century, where scale and capacity can be received at the touch of a finger on a thing called the electronic media. And that seems to be something that the state government just does not understand.
Well, you asked if there's one thing that is in favour of amalgamation, and there is. It's economics, and what Lynn said is perhaps the most telling thing, endorsed by Angus, that whereas poles and wires, which some might agree with, but obviously it's a good thing, we've still got poles and wires, and we have the capital, and now we have the income. But we're not poles and wires, so we can choose between what Lynn said, and I forget your actual expression, it was actually between economics and people. And local councils are meant to be people, historically.